We have breaking news at the Pentagon. We are continuing to follow this big story right now. According to the Pentagon, the hazardous materials team is now scrubbing several locations inside the Pentagon's A-ring. That's the centermost location in that building. And this is a live look there now. So you can't see what they're doing on the inside. And again, I'm still working to find out when exactly this started. We know that there was an ex post that said that units were, including their hazmat team, were currently operating at the Pentagon along with their Pentagon Force Protection Agency. That doesn't tell us exactly what they have found, but we do know, according to a source, that this is after systems detected a problem with the air quality in the building. So the air quality in that centermost part of the Pentagon, those offices, inside that structure, a device picked up some kind of biohazard scent. And the Pentagon source we've been talking to at Fox News says that they haven't found anything yet. There's no indication that this is nefarious. And there is a shelter in place for people close to that area of the Pentagon. So I would term that as, having been there, it's been many years I've been in that close, but my dad worked there for years. I can tell you that that's a lockdown situation. So no one in, no one out. And they want other people to stay away from that area of the building, and they are testing the air now in several locations to make sure whatever was detected was not a situation that can spread. So I want to get more detail now on exactly how long this incident has been going on, excuse me, because what's important about that is those areas are tight, and you want to know, well, has it spread? And so, yes, it is great to have people not go into that area. Have they started evacuating anybody out of that building? So we are watching for that. Our Lucas Tomlinson, we are rounding up our team right now. Our Lucas Tomlinson will be live at the White House just moments from now. But as you look at the structure, you can see the enormity. And on any given day, you have thousands of people inside the Pentagon. You have contractors coming in and out. I mean, it would be an untold number of people that would be gathered in meetings and that sort of thing inside this huge structure. So with a certain number of them on lockdown at the center point, and also if you can go back, and I don't know, this is file, but our live shots seem to have a better overhead view of the Pentagon. Yeah, you can see that open area in the center. And then all around that, in that first ring, are the offices that we're talking about. And then it just sort of spins on around, and it gets wider and wider and wider. Again, thousands of people. Lucas Tomlinson is live at the White House with more on this. Lucas, what are your sources telling you?
Well, right now, Harris, we have a statement that just came out from the Pentagon, from Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell. I'll read it for our audience. It says, quote, "The Pentagon has sophisticated systems to ensure the safety of the building and its occupants. These systems have detected an air quality issue necessitating precautionary measures until we determine its significance. The department is executing standard protection protocols, including a shelter in place for the affected area. Response teams are in place and ready to support the building." And we just learned from Arlington County Fire Department, they have dispatched some hazmat units to the Pentagon on any given day. Harris, you mentioned there's about 20,000 people at the Pentagon, the largest office building in the United States, one of the largest office buildings in the world. For now, this appears to be a detection issue, no verification that there is, in fact, actual hazardous material. We learned that some areas of the Pentagon are being scrubbed down. But, of course, anybody walking into the Pentagon, whether you work there, you've been cleared. The general public cannot just walk into the Pentagon, and certainly anyone carrying any hazardous material you would think would be detected. But tour groups, there are some tour groups that do go through the Pentagon. Those names, again, are scrubbed before entering the Pentagon. So right now, this appears to be an alarm. We have no confirmation that there's actually hazardous material inside the Pentagon.
Ago. And when you go in, you bring up a wonderful point. It's also very hard to even get to the doors that lead into the inner sanctum area, where you would see,
police force.
You know, Secretary of War in those offices. And so getting into that area, you have to have a reason to be there. It's more than just them checking ID and all of that. But what can you tell me, and of course you have served, and so I know you've been in and out of that building as well. What can you tell me about the A-ring at the Pentagon, which is where they first detected this hazmat scent through, and what they're looking at right now, whether or not it's nefarious or something naturally occurring and just too much of it.
If you have a picture of the Pentagon, Harris, to share with our audience, the A-ring is the most closest to the center of the Pentagon. The E-ring would be the outer perimeter of the Pentagon. So the A-ring is the the center point of the Pentagon. It goes A through E. There's a numbered system with corridors 1 through 9, and so the A-ring would be the closest to the courtyard. If you can see on this map, you see the courtyard there in the middle of the Pentagon. Obviously, as the name suggests, is a 5-sided building with about 20,000 people that work there on any given day. And you mentioned the contractors, Harris. Of course, you have service members from all the branches: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Space Force now working there. You also have service secretaries. You have the Joint Chiefs, so you have the top military officials from each branch represented there. Needless to say, there's a lot of brass that works in the Pentagon on any given day, which is why this is a story we're talking about right now. It's, in fact, I was at the Pentagon years covering for Fox. I don't recall any hazardous material alarm ever being sounded. This is what makes it notable. But again, we have to stress, right now, it is an indication, an alarm that there's hazardous material, but we have not received any confirmation that there's actually hazardous material in the building. There is some precautionary scrubbing from some hazmat teams, and the Arlington County Fire Department is on scene, we're told.
And if memory serves, it's really interesting. It's about 17.5 miles of corridors through there. But I remember that even though it's that big, it only takes you a few minutes to walk to any 2 points because of the efficiency and the design of this. So when you talk about moving people around in that structure, it's very efficient to do that. I have a map in my hand from one of our team members, and I'm hoping we can get this on the screen because you needed it too when you were talking, but you did a wonderful job of telling us what we're looking at. So the A-ring is that inner area. You know, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth's office is on the 2nd floor of this 5-story building.
That would be the E-ring.
And that's in the E-ring, and you mentioned that. And so is General Kane's office. In fact, I know they're, you know, not far from one another. That's on the 1st floor. So it is 5 floors above ground plus a mezzanine and a basement. So when I tell you, and the number can be as many as 27,000 people in that structure at one time, when I tell you that it can hold a lot of people, as you and I have been saying, Lucas, don't doubt that for a minute, because not everybody works there. It can be those contractors. So we've got that. Lucas, please stay with me. I want to welcome into the conversation Bill Daley, former FBI investigator. Bill, are you with us?
I am with you.
All right. You're joining us by phone. Lucas is with me, too, on screen, so we will toggle back and forth. First of all, have you been able to find out anything? And as you watch this, what do you think is most important for us to know?
Well, as I'm watching it unfold, there are a couple of things to be thinking about. First of all is that, you know, as you and Lucas have said, is that the Pentagon is really kind of a city by itself. In fact, the metro stop that goes underneath the Pentagon is Pentagon City. So there's a huge complex, both below ground, and as you said, has many thousands of people working there at any one given day. I would probably say, as having worked more so in the private sector and looking at facilities after 9/11, I don't know specifics, and we certainly wouldn't speak about them if I knew about them, about the Pentagon. But I would just say broadly is that many buildings, including government buildings, have put in sensors to detect any biological, chemical type of weapons, whether it be coming through air systems, whether they be released by some other mechanism within the building. Certainly that was the concern after 9/11 when we saw kind of anthrax being sent to various news organizations. So a lot of focus was given on how to detect these. So we don't know at this point whether or not this was just a sensor that perhaps had been triggered for some other miscellaneous reason or unrelated to an actual contamination, or whether it was something else that was some way brought into the facility, gotten into the facility somehow and released. So we're still waiting for all that. But I think what it does go to show us is that how effectively and efficiently that they're working on being able to safeguard people, to deal with the issues at hand. And as we go further along, and just kind of taking a bit to its natural progression, if this was in any way something more nefarious, and certainly something that was planned, that facility would have extensive coverage with regard to, you know, closed-circuit camera system, access control, and there are certainly, you know, compartmentalization that goes on within that facility that they have various levels of being able to understand who's in there at any one time. Lucas has talked about perhaps tour groups coming through, but all
That's
these,
true
even
too.
if you are going on a tour group, you need to be screened. You need to provide information about who you are. You just don't show up at the door and say, I want a tour. So there's a lot of things that can be done afterwards to find out, in fact, if something was put in for some nefarious purposes. But at this point, it could very well be perhaps a sensor or some other mechanism that is indicating that there's some type of contamination, or maybe release of some other material that is being detected as being a contaminant when, in fact, it's maybe related to construction or something else going on.
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing up all those points, and your acumen as a detective and an investigator for the FBI is certainly showing, because you're coming up with scenarios that would explain things that you have seen before. And that's in an investigation, and even in a response like this, I would say, Bill, really where you start. You want to just, first of all, take off the checklist all the things you've seen and what it could be that we know that we could be looking for, and then you're going to go deeper and look for other things. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.